This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan Scott Hall and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number one, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour podcast. Podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just an
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. And joining me today, a man that is probably ready to kick off 2024 with a big bang, is Dirkness.
Sup, Lafy the podcast. We're gonna simplify the podcast this week.
Okay. Simplify.
Keep it simple. Keep it supple. Simple and simple.
That in reference to, I imagine, the Chiefs wanting to simplify their offense.
The multiple reports from all angles, including promo to lead off the broadcast. But yeah, they were definitely putting that message out there.
Oh, I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention at the beginning of the broadcast. I didn't know Romo. I mean, if that's what they're telling Tom Pelissero and whoever else, it's just being parroted around. That makes sense. Okay. Well, I mean, Dirk, the Chiefs rebounded from their Christmas massacre with a big win on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Did you come away from the game as optimistic as I did?
Well, I'm actually going to defer on this. I may have won the coin toss to lead off the show, but I'm going to defer to the second half of the podcast.
Sure.
I'm going to send this back your way because it was you leading this charge, discussing becoming a defensive team the last few weeks and what that might look like, even went as far as during the game this week to call your shot down 17-7, that the defense wouldn't allow another point. I did fact check that, by the way, because I thought you might have said it at like 14 points and they got a field goal after that. But I got to say, I fact checked it and it passed the fact check. They did not allow another point. Good job by you. So I want to know if this game was what you had in mind by the Chiefs becoming a defensive team.
I mean, yes and no. Is it the exact perfect defensive team blueprint? I would not say that. But I would tell you that this was the Chiefs' best game of the season. And I've got a few bullet points here. I mean, to be clear, I want to try and keep this as conversational as possible because I don't have some super eloquent point to be able to give you. But I think this is the Chiefs' best game of the season for a few reasons. Number one, they scored on their opening drive. It's not only the third time they've scored on their opening drive, but their third opening drive touchdown of the season.
And first one at home, correct?
First at Arrowhead, yes. The other two were in Minnesota and in Germany against the Dolphins. So something somewhat rare. I mean, they've had a few field goals to lead off games, but scoring a touchdown to start the game so that you are not in a hole is something that you have to do if you're going to be a defensive team. I think that you gotta be able to kind of play in the lead in order to really play complementary football. So I would say the opening drive touchdown really helps kind of set the tone for what I consider the best game of the season. Here's some other things to keep in mind in terms of what is going into at least my thinking on this is the Chiefs' best game of the season. They only had 3 penalties the entire game. One of them was on L'Jarius Sneed for, his customary I am going to mess with whatever receiver I'm playing against penalty, and we all take that, and it doesn't really count. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I don't even remember it. That's how good it was.
Right? There was a false start that was called on Creed. I think it was more like kind of everybody, and they called it on the center. I don't fully remember how it worked out, but it was in the third quarter, I believe. And then the one big one, the downfield throw to T. Higgins, in which Joshua Williams was trying to hold his hand. And by hold his hand, I mean hold his entire arm. Just hang on. I'm hanging on for dear life.
I'm not doing anything. Can I just say right off the bat, I don't get why Joshua Williams plays. I don't know if Jalen Watson went down in this game, but Jalen Watson has been playing really good football. So if they're subbing him out for Joshua Williams, I'm not in favor of that. Just right off the bat, quick point.
Well, and I do think, I mean, I'm not typically when I'm looking at the snap counts, looking at the corners isn't something that I tend to do that closely, because I would imagine that Snead and McDuffie are playing close to 100% of the snaps. And so, don't get me wrong, we have a third and sometimes fourth corner on the field somewhat often.
But it wasn't four corners. Like the last drive was like all Joshua Williams. So it wasn't like four corners like I might have been thinking. Watson might have got banged up. I still have no idea what happened, but it was interesting to see him out there instead. But please continue.
So they only had the 3 penalties, and 2 of them were totally inconsequential. They fought back after being down 10 points. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you go up 7, scoring on the opening drive is a good thing. But the getting down 10, we'll talk about the defense here a little bit.
They didn't seem to panic when they got down. Like it really felt like panic set in against the Raiders. Granted, that was different circumstances where it's 2 gigantic plays kind of right in a row, so it kind of sent them into a panic, I think. But they kept their composure in this one. It's just like, okay, we've been down 10 plenty of times. Mm-hmm. We can fight back in this one and figure it out. Like we don't have to have this entire comeback like in one play, like is what kind of felt like they were doing at times in the Raiders game.
So the fighting back after being down 10 points, you hit it on the head for me. They never really seemed panicked. They just kind of chipped away at the lead throughout the game. In fact, they scored on 7 of their 9 drives in this game, if you don't count the 10th drive as the victory formation. The 2 drives that don't end in a score were the strip sack from Trey Hendrickson in the first half and 1 measly punt from Tommy Townsend. After they go down 10, the big thing that jumps out to me is that they only end up having 4 negative plays the rest of the game. We have to play clean if we're going to be a defensive team. There's a pass for -2 yards. There's the false start. There's a pass for -2 yards and then a pass for -1 yard. And if you want to call it 6, including those 2 MVS drops, both of them happened after we went down 17-7. So technically 6 negative plays.
Just negative because they sucked.
the drops I count as negative plays because, yes, they sucked.
All right,
they were bad plays, right?
I can see that.
But, they're not like you're not seeing Mahomes getting sacked in there. You're not seeing some of the end around stuff that has caused us to sometimes lose 5, 6, 7 yards. You did a deep dive on losing the most yards on a play that wasn't a sack.
A completed reception, an all-timer.
They finished the game too. Like the Chiefs, as I broke down a few weeks ago, I did a little update just to kind of check in, see how the numbers have moved, and they haven't really. The Chiefs are still last in the league in fourth quarter scoring, averaging just over a field goal for the season in the fourth quarter. So they doubled up their season average. They scored 6 points in this fourth quarter.
It's like a theme, kicking field goals.
So that's good. But the Chiefs are 28th in second half scoring, only averaging about 8 points per second half. And they put up 15 I mean, they doubled their second half and fourth quarter averages on the season en route to winning this game. I mean, I thought it was their best game of the season, largely because it felt like they came into the game and maybe not the entire game. Maybe they came into the second half with a very distinct plan. It might be an easier argument for me to make. But I feel like they came into the game with a plan and then they executed that plan. And so many of these games, it's like, man, if they turn the ball over, then they just can't come back from it. Oh, well, man, if they have a penalty, they just can't come back from it. Oh, if they have a drop, they just can't overcome it. And MVS had 2 drops. One of them was on a third down that probably would have turned into a touchdown. I say probably, possibly turned into a touchdown if you look at the dots.
I mean, he probably scored. I mean, it's not Mahomes' best pass. It's not on Mahomes. I don't want to say it at all. It's not Mahomes' error in the end. If it is out in front of him, he probably takes it and might house it. But he's getting hit as he's throwing it, so the throw is a little off. Still easily catchable and easily picks up the first down if he catches that. And let me just say, that was the most mad I've been the entire season. And in a season full of dumb mistakes, all kinds of problems, the most mad I was MVS dropping that ball and then having the gall, the audacity to look back and shoot Mahomes that look and motion where the ball is and where he kind of wanted it. It was just like, dude, we have covered your ass so many times at all turns because that's what the Chiefs franchise does. And for good reason. And it bugs the hell out of fans. And for him to do that, I know it's kind of heat in the moment, but man, to give that back to them in that moment when he's the one that's just like, dude, you have to make a play at some point. You're getting chance after chance after chance. They're putting faith in you and you're not coming through again and again. And then on top of that, you put the blame on someone else. It was, I was irate.
What happens if you just cut MVS right now? Like, I have never wanted someone to pull Avonte Davis so badly in my entire life, except for MVS on my football team right now. And honestly, Kadarius Toney's kind of a close second. Like, if those guys just quit at halftime of the game, because, I mean, let's be honest, they probably won't put Toney out there in week 18 because he hasn't played the last 2. And every time he plays, more than 15 snaps, he needs a 2 or 3 week break. But MVS should just be out there for every snap. He's playing every snap in games that matter, but not doing anything. So have him as punishment run cardio this next week against the Chargers. And ultimately,
a spite play.
Hope he quits. I hope he just quits at halftime and says, this is bullshit. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, it's like when you're in a bad relationship, right? Like, you don't want to do the breaking up with them, but you do all the work to get them to break up with you. That's what the Chiefs, I think, are trying to do with MVS right now. And hopefully that's the plan in week 18. Just keep putting him out there. Hey, look, we want to showcase you, man. We want to give you the opportunity. And ultimately he just walks away. That'd be good.
I love it. Do it. Everyone else is sitting except MVS. You get out there, son. Make him cover kickoffs.
Yeah, that would actually be if you really want to punish him, make him play both ways. Hey, you're gonna play defensive tackle this week. All right.
They turn everybody into a good cornerback, so it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he starts playing cornerback and all of a sudden he's really good. Like, holy shit, they found another one.
Well, most corners can't catch, so that's maybe right where he belongs.
He's in the right room.
We belong on a break. That's a terrible transition, but that's where we belong. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Nailed it.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Dirk, I've been wondering, do you love sports?
Hell yeah.
You love some sports.
Hell yeah.
Well, listen, for those that are like Dirk and love sports, you can actually share your love of sports by coaching young people right here in Kansas City. Our partners this year, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, they need your help today. Beyond their after-school programming, they actually offer leagues for baseball and softball and basketball and flag football and many more sports. All you got to do is visit helpkckids.org and click on volunteer for more information. So if you find yourself coaching from the couch during games, maybe you should consider coaching from the sidelines as a volunteer with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Learn more at helpkckids.org.
Your company can hit it out of the park with a sports league sponsorship with Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Reach thousands of local families while giving the kids the opportunity to get in the game. Contact giving at helpkckids.org for more information on becoming a sponsor for leagues and teams.
Dirk, I think it's important that I be self-aware and understand that people are going to have some complaints and say there's no way that a 25-17 win over the Jake Browning-led Bengals at Arrowhead in December is their best game of the season. And I figure that the people that probably disagree with the fact that I think it was their best game of the season would probably start with, 3 of 12 on third down might be one of the big things that they want to talk about. Let's look at the third downs in this game. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna support your claim at first. Are you poking holes in it? Where are we going here?
Oh, well, I'm just saying, I think that people are going to complain about the Chiefs going 3 of 12 on third down. And I've got some reasons why I think they did. And I don't think they're particularly bad.
All right.
In the first half on third down, the first time that they fail on a third down in the first half was the sack fumble. Because they had the opening drive touchdown. Second time they get the ball, sack fumble on third down. The next time they have a third down in the first half, I think it was a bad pass. I might be smashing some things up. The memory can get a little blurry sometimes with as many Chiefs games as we've watched. But I know it was an incomplete pass to Travis Kelce, and I'm certain he was running toward the sticks at the sideline. And I don't know if he didn't catch it. I don't know
I
if
think that was the one, that it wasn't quite out in front of him.
Yeah. Either way, let's say bad pass to Travis. And then the last third down in the first half that they did not complete was the drop by MVS on 3rd and 3 that we just talked about before the break. In the second half, here are the third downs that the Chiefs missed. The first one, what I see in the play-by-play is deep pass intended for Justin Watson incomplete with Cam Taylor-Britt in coverage, one of the best young corners in the NFL. I don't remember this play.
It's a route they run a lot. They used to do it with Tyreek a lot, but it's just kind of he's inside the slot and he's running kind of the deep crosser over. Mm-hmm. He's pretty open. I saw a lot of people kind of saying it was a drop. I wouldn't classify it as a drop personally. I think Mahomes shoots it a little high on that. I would kind of put that one on Mahomes personally, but he did have a step and it kind of just went, it was too high for him and kind of went off the top of his hands.
That's right. We were thinking the elevator needs to go up that high and he didn't quite reach the top floor.
Yeah.
Okay. So he missed Watson. That was on the 3 and out right out of halftime. I don't know how deep the throw is, but he misses Justin Watson down the
20 yards, 15, 20 yards.
Okay. So after that, it's checkdowns on 3rd and 8, and then 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 5, basically just throwing the ball horizontally and hoping Pacheco makes a guy miss. And then the last third down that they fail on, Rashid gets 7 when they needed 8, and we're basically playing for a field goal. It's 22-17 at that point. It's the Chiefs' final drive of the day, except for victory formation. And so I don't, especially the 3rd and 8 check down, 3rd and 3, throw it to Pacheco, 3rd and 5, throw it to Pacheco. Pacheco, man, bunch of third down catches in this game. Led the Chiefs in receptions in this game, probably even in targets, I would guess too. What that shows me is that when they were maybe not thinking we've got to play pretty close to the vest here, we're going to lean on this defense and we're going to just try to chip away at this lead. they saw some bad results. They get the sack fumble. They've got this essentially drop by Kelsey, and certainly a drop by MVS. And it's just like, man, when they're pressing, when Andy's like, all right, we got to really come up with something for 3rd and 3 or down here in the red zone. It's like that is when it seems like they are prone to mistakes. If they want to simplify the offense, then you got to take what is being given to you.
Well, yeah, and I think to go to your point, I mean, I guess the check downs, taking, a 3rd and 8 and getting 3 yards on it and kicking 3 points, that's not something we are accustomed to as Chiefs fans. But if you want to see this team, lean on their defense and win ugly like this, that's what it's going to look like a lot of times because, they're staying in it. They're hanging in there, hanging in the pocket. Mahomes running all around, trying to make something happen on 3rd and 11. And then you get like a strip sack coming from behind, those kind of things. So if you're looking for them to be like the defensive team that you've kind of labeled, you might see more plays like that, which can be frustrating. But in the long run, since this team can't seem to get out of its own way, they're going to have to, take them out of their way, for lack of a better explanation, and kind of take some of those plays that we are not used to as Chiefs fans in the Patrick Mahomes era.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that check down is almost like a naughty word for certain Chiefs fans, especially those that really like the high-flying Chiefs of 2018 and think that like that is what it means to be good. I just want to caution everybody, and this is what I was talking about during the game. Each time they're settling for field goals, every time it happens, I'm just like, bravo, guys. Like, just take what's there, kick the field goal. This is exactly how you do it. But ultimately, I think one of the issues that people are going to have is they're going to say, oh, well, when you play better teams in the playoffs, or you're going to have to convert some of these. And look, like, I guess I get it, but like the Chiefs have lost games to teams that only kicked field goals in the playoffs. And I'm not trying to lean on that one instance as like the crutch for an argument here. I did not walk away from that game thinking, oh my God, look at all these problems. I walked away from that game thinking this team finally played like they know who they are. They're not an explosive offense, even though they were a little bit explosive in this game. But what they are truly is a sound defensive team. And if you play complementary football, and this is where my tweet came from, like if the offense just plays clean, they can easily win almost any game to me. I do think – go ahead, Dirk, before I jump to the next point here.
I mean, I think that's just like the finding their identity and kind of why all of that came out this week, the simplifying and stuff. It's kind of like they tried to find their old offense for the first 15 weeks. They tried this thing and they tried this thing and they tried this thing and nothing seemed to work. And it just kind of led to more and more mistakes. Okay, let's add some motion in here. Let's try some new bodies. And pretty much everything they did – ended up kind of backfiring in the end, and they just couldn't find the magic. And it's reached a point where they're like, okay, fuck all this. We're going to have to do what we can to win best in 2023. And it might look more like this. Some stats here that kind of go towards this being what I would call a secretly dominant win. So I was looking at the stats yards per play. The Chiefs actually averaged over 7 yards per play. The 7-yard barrier per play is a big one. The Chiefs led the NFL last year at 6.3 yards per play. So average over 7 yards a play is a very good thing. They've done it, let's see here, 24 times now in the Patrick Mahomes era. They're 20-4 in those games. So that's basically like 5 or 6 times a year in that era. It's only the second time this year that they've hit that. Also the Chargers game. But then on the defensive end, and here's where complementary football comes in, over 7 yards per play on offense, and they allowed under 4 yards per play on defense. So I was like, damn, that's a big ass disparity there. Let's see how often this has happened. That's only happened 3 times in the NFL this season amongst all NFL teams. That happened when the Cowboys beat the Giants and when the Dolphins beat the Giants. And then this game with the Chiefs was the 3rd time this season. It's only happened twice for the Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes era. And that was, the other game was 2020 versus the Jets. And that's when they were like a 2-14, absolutely nothing team. And it's only happened 21 times in the entire NFL since 2016. So the last 8 years, these barriers have been hit only 21 times across the entire league, over 7 yards per play on offense and under 4 yards per play allowed on defense. Those teams are 20-1 in those games. But it was just kind of interesting to see that the disparity there amongst, how effective the Chiefs were on a play-by-play basis. Like it didn't look the same as what we're used to because they ended up kicking a lot of field goals, but they basically had the 2 3-and-out drives, and every other drive they were moving the ball. They had here 53.4 yards per drive outside of those 2 3-and-outs. So each of the other drives, they're moving right down the field and not getting touchdowns like you want, but at least they're showing signs of being, a very effective offense that they've shown obviously throughout the Patrick Mahomes era. So I thought that was very promising to see, and kind of goes to show as to why maybe you felt like it was such a, they looked good doing it. Like the scoreboard didn't quite reflect how much or how well the Chiefs played in that game, I would say.
Well, and one of the things that I think helps speak to that too is this idea that the defense might be kind of trending in the wrong direction. I have seen a few people kind of talking about, well, why are we letting teams get out to these leads? And here, look, so the Bengals started touchdown, field goal on their first 3 drives. And I'm like, okay, so is this a trend? Let's just, use the bye week as a natural divider. Coming out of the bye week, the Eagles did not really get out with a lead. In fact, the Chiefs were up 17-7 at halftime of that game, which is just brutal thinking back to losing that one. The Raiders, the first game, no, did not allow the Raiders to get out to a lead. Raiders' second time we played them, the Raiders really only scored twice in the game, 2 field goals. The Patriots, no, they didn't get out to a lead either. The Chiefs were up at halftime in that one. But here's where I think there is some things for people to consider. Against the Bengals start field goal, touchdown. Against the Bills, they punted on their opening possession, and then they went touchdown. The Packers, touchdown. The Raiders, touchdown, missed field goal, touchdown in that first game. And so they have allowed 4 of their 7 opponents after the bye to score some points in the first half. But if you go back and look, I believe only 2 of those teams scored over 20. I mean, like they're allowing teams to score early, and this is in one way that they're not playing complementary football. And I do, however, look at, you talked about how the Chiefs had this kind of sneaky dominant game against the Bengals. And I do fear just a tad, particularly in the playoffs, that if the defense starts slow like that, the team could find themselves in a hole. But I think the big thing for the Chiefs in this game, and this might be another reason why people say there's no way that was the best game of the year, mostly adjusting for the level of competition, particularly when it comes to the Bengals defense, but the Chiefs moved the ball. The reason that they were able to score on all of these drives is because they got into scoring position. And they've really struggled to do that lately, man. I mean, the Chiefs are 12th in scoring offense this year, but when you look at like the number of explosive plays, I saw that the Chiefs only have 7 touchdowns of 10 or more yards this entire season. Their opponents have 15. And now one of those, I saw the way it's being calculated is actual just scoring plays. So like the 33-yard pick 6 is included in those 15 touchdowns. It's not necessarily 15 plays of 10 or more yards allowed by the defense. But the Chiefs are not a particularly explosive team, and they got some explosive plays both in the pass game and in the run game. And that really, the way that they ran the ball, man, certainly a positive sign, even though DJ Reader's not out there. This is something that they're going to need to do going forward. I know that you have got a couple things, both offensively and defensively, that you're thinking the Chiefs have got to do this if they want to be a defensive team. If this is going to be their identity, that they are a defensive team, as I've been kind of trying to argue. Let's take a quick breather, and then I'll let you take it away from there.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this like if they are going to be a defensive team, I think they could do this and grind out some wins kind of thing. But if they are going to take this and win a Super Bowl by using this style of play, I got two things that the offense needs to do and two things that the defense needs to do. You may have trickled over into a little bit of this. So the defense, the number one, was quicker start to games. And it's kind of what you hit on. One thing I did 21 questions with Craig last night, and he was kind of teasing an article. I'm not totally sure if it's out yet or not, so I'm sorry if I'm stepping on toes there, Craigathon. But he kind of broke down. So Bolton kind of comes in and plays those first couple drives at middle linebacker. They've been struggling in those drives. Then they give him a rest drive, and they put in Tranquil. Kind of like a sub role. This is the kind of same thing they were doing last year with Gay, taking him out and putting in Darius Harris. So they do this, and his theory was, he has all these stats to back up, like they've struggled on those first couple drives. They sit Bolton for a drive, and then he comes back, and the defense is like a totally different animal to mess with. And he kind of theorized that he's such a heady player that Spags kind of plays it vanilla, looks at the opposing offense is doing, takes all that, runs it by Bolton, and then the defense adjusts and really starts to attack what the opposing offense is doing. So that's kind of what you're seeing with a lot of these games where the opposing offense is getting off to a hot start, and then the defense kind of comes around and starts shutting them down. That's kind of his theory on it. But this is important. If you're going to be this type of game, you can't get down in games. Like, you don't want to be getting down 10 points, 14 points early in these games if you're going to play this style, because that's what leads to the mistakes. So if they're going to try and play mistake-free football, this goes hand in hand with that. The other thing, one thing on the defense that you did not hit on, they got to force more turnovers. They have forced 2 turnovers in the last 6 weeks. Like, we've been harping again and again about the offense turning it over, and that's a huge problem, obviously. But the defense is 28th in the NFL in turnovers forced this year. The 2 they've had in the last 6 weeks are the Josh Allen threw an interception to Chimichanga Connor, whatever. Bailey Zappi threw an interception to Willie Gay. Both ensuing drives by the offense were touchdowns. So it's one of the few times that the offense actually gets a short field and they score touchdowns. Both those. The Gay drive was like 7 yards, I think. But if you're going to be a defensive style team, it's not enough to just kind of hold them out of the end zone and keep them away from points. Help the offense out by creating some short fields and forcing some turnovers like that. So those are 2 things that I think the defense can really do if they're going to start riding this defense and take it far in the playoffs.
You mentioned that they're 28. So the Chiefs are bottom 5 in takeaways defensively. The teams that are down there with them, man, we're talking about the Falcons, the Rams, the Titans, the Panthers. The only 4 teams that have fewer turnovers forced than the Chiefs this year. Did you say 1 in the last 6 games?
2
in the last 6 games. My God, man. Yeah, I mean, it has not been as opportunistic a defense, I think, as you would think for as good as they've been. For them to be,
especially with like all the pressure they put on quarterbacks, like they're sending these blitzers and they're getting after the quarterback, especially these exotic blitzes, and sometimes the quarterback doesn't even see it coming and is confused. You would think that lead to him just accidentally throwing it to someone sitting back in a zone. Or getting a strip sack, but the turnovers just haven't quite been there this year for a defense that's played great, all other things considered.
And what's weird is, like, I don't even feel like it's been like a bad luck. Like, oh, he just didn't come down with that one. Oh man, he was in perfect position. Like, I don't see that. I don't see that happening. You mentioned the linebackers, and I want to run something by you real quick that I think is kind of very Dirky. I want to say that it was you at some point in the many, many years that we've been doing this together. that you started trying to tell people, like, I think the most difficult position of maybe any position anywhere in sports is being a starting cornerback in the NFL. Playing corner in the NFL is like the loneliest, most difficult job that you could possibly imagine.
Look at how fans think of Charvarius Ward. Ask a random Chiefs fan what they think of Charvarius Ward, who is a top-tier corner, extremely well played, having a great career. And Chiefs fans, he played for us on a rookie deal, won us a Super Bowl, and they're like, oh, God, that guy was fucking terrible. Just terrible. Like,
because they remember Russell Wilson.
I don't know what to tell you, guys. I don't know what to tell you. He's not.
I think that linebacker is now the hardest job in the NFL. I think that playing linebacker is the toughest job in the league right now. And the reason that I say that is, number one, because I'm a Chiefs fan, and it helps me feel better about the linebackers that we've spent significant assets on. The Chiefs have drafted 3 linebackers in the top 105 picks or whatever. I think Chenal was just outside the top 100. And then they, gave Drew Tranquill a little bit of money for him to come in here. And we're thinking that Drew Tranquill, I say we, the collective, many ball watchers believe that Drew Tranquill is the best linebacker on the team. And then we've got these 3 guys, and it's like, does anyone think that Nick Bolton is bad? No. Does anyone think that Leo Chenal is bad? Like, I think that people get excited. Oh, man, he's so athletic. Oh, he makes this play. Oh, Spags uses him this way. We see a lot of, I think, upside, at least, with Willie Gay. We know that he can kind of, be up and down a little bit. But, like, I think that we all think that these guys are good, generally. That's certainly above that like line of whether or not they're good. Yeah, they're above the line. And yet, week after week, it seems like teams are targeting the linebackers and the safeties in coverage. They're throwing to running backs and tight ends. And I'm just like, man, all the stuff that the linebackers have to sort through, they still have to, like, compete against offensive linemen in order to be clean and free and make tackles. They have to watch all the back and forth pre-snap motion stuff. There's so many things they have to do. They also have to, at times, certainly keep an eye on the quarterback. Old squirrely Jake Browning out there running circles around the defense early in the game.
Rich Gannon. He's gotten his Rich Gannon on.
But, man, there's like 2 good linebackers in the league. And they both got paid like $100
one of
million.
One of them sitting on our bench.
Right. And so, like, I think that there are more corners in the league that people think are good than there are linebackers in the league that people think are good. I'm starting to see people talk about this incoming draft class, and there's like maybe 1 linebacker that goes in the top 100 picks. I mean, people are like, nope, linebacker's terrible. You don't want to pay him. I mean, Drew Tranquill signed here for like $2 or $3 million this year after leading the Chargers in tackles and having like multiple sacks and interceptions and everyone being like, he might be the best linebacker in the division. And we signed him in like May for nothing. I think that it is very, very difficult to be a linebacker in this day and age. And to me, that means that we might need to just ease up on how we're talking about these guys. Okay. That's fair, Thomas.
Well, I think it's just like an undervalued position, in my opinion. Like, I think teams don't put the value in linebackers that I think they should. It is they definitely were coming out and attacking Bolton. That was definitely in the game plan for Cincinnati. It was definitely in the game plan for Buffalo. Teams are coming out early in the games and they're trying to isolate Bolton either with a tight end or most likely a running back. And they're having a lot of success with it because a lot of these games, the other team will score some points and they're not doing it through the receivers. The receivers are getting shut down and it's a lot of tight end and running back out of the backfield. And that's how they're moving the ball. We can come on here week after week and say, I think Tranquill should play over Bolton. I don't think it's going to happen before the playoffs. I'm just kind of conceding that. And I think Bolton just has to figure it out and they have to find the right rotation and play him at the right times because they seem to think Bolton is the guy. And I get it. He's a leader and he's super smart and he makes a lot of the calls. But the defense looked just as good with Tranquil in there and Bolton out for it. I think this is a point that we've talked about quite a bit, but I don't think we need to harp on it any more than that. I want to get 2 points for the offense. So I got to the 2 points for the defense that I want to see.
Let's recap the defense real quick, just so people can kind of.
Well, just the 2 points that I want to see is quicker start to games, so they're not getting behind in games, and they can play an even-keeled game instead of the offense getting down 2 scores and having to start push. Right. And then the defense forcing more turnovers because they've only forced 2 in the last 6 weeks. Get that offensive short field, get them something easy, get that confidence going early in the game instead of everything being so difficult all day. Like, how many of these games has it just been like everything is so hard and everyone just looks exhausted and Mahomes is just like at his wit's end by mid third quarter. Like, get these guys some easy plays, make somebody on offense make a play for him and somebody on defense get him a short field. Like, that's what would help a lot. To the offensive side, 2 things that's going to help this team contend for a Super Bowl as a defensive team, kind of the style that they showed in the Cincinnati game, simplifying the offense, yada, yada. They got to keep the running game going. It has been super inconsistent with little rhyme or reason to what's going on. So the 5 games before the bye week, they're averaging 77 rush yards per game. Pacheco at 3.7 yards per clip. Okay, a 5-game struggle. They come out of the bye week. The next 3 games, they're averaging 128 yards per game. Pacheco's at 4.9. This includes running it down the throat of the Eagles, who had the number 1 run defense at the time. I'm not sure if it stayed there or not, but all of a sudden, okay, the run game seems like what they figured out at the bye week. We were waiting for the pass game bump from Andy Reid, but maybe he's kind of figured out the running game here. Pacheco then goes down. The next 3 games, they're back down to 70 yards per game. The running backs are at 2.9 yards per carry. It's Clyde in there for 2 of those 3 games. And then last week with Pacheco in the worst running game we've seen of the season against the Raiders, where they just had nothing. And it's just like, okay, now it's a 3-game dip again, and you see the offense start to struggle at that point. Now, if I get that to this week, Isaiah Pacheco's running like an animal out there again. He has 18 carries for 130 yards at 7.2 yards per carry. This offense is different and very functional if they have the running game to go along with it. Like, that starts opening things up. It's no coincidence that they're running the ball really well in the first half, and then all of a sudden some receivers pop open deep in the second half. Like, that's not a coincidence. They have to start crushing down on this running game, and that's when the deep shots open up. Like, you wanted to see, they didn't catch them all, but you did see open receivers downfield. Rice catches a deep one. Watson catches a deep one. MVS gets open on a deep one. And so that's something we just haven't seen much of this year. And I think the running game is a big key to that. And it goes hand in hand. Being a defensive team and being a running team, those things go hand in hand. It's hard to be like a pass-heavy offense and not be able to run the ball and then be a defensive team at the same time. So I think that's the first big step for the offense.
And some of that has to do with just, you think of being a defensive team and it's like, limit possessions and, control the tempo, keep the ball away from the other team. These are the types of things that we've seen teams like the Bengals try to do to the Chiefs. You want to limit the other offense. I don't think that necessarily has to be the way that the Chiefs win. They don't have to play keep away, but they do have to be efficient. Right? We can't have we just went 4 straight drives and only ran, a total of 15 plays or something, and we don't score on any of them. Like, the Chiefs' inability to be able to string together back-to-back or multiple drives throughout this season has been a huge, huge pockmark for them. I go through and look and say, like, okay, well, first and foremost, just to take a step back on the running game from this specific game against the Bengals, dude, the guts from Isaiah Pacheco. I tried to put it into context considering the fact that, like, they did not have really an experienced running back behind him. I don't know if either Prince or Ingram played an offensive snap. Pacheco was out there for every single play. He had shoulder surgery 2 weeks ago. He had a concussion 6 days ago. And he didn't practice all week long. We didn't even know if he's going to be out there. And then he played like that. Really carried the team.
It's probably the best player on the field. I mean, I guess you could say L'Jarius Sneed, but Pacheco was the best player on the offense. Like, he was an animal out there. He was carrying us. It was a flashback to the Jets game earlier that he had this year, where he went off in that game. 2 games where he has carried this offense this year.
Well, and the thing that when they're good at running the ball, when this team can be balanced, it certainly makes the offense more dangerous. It's that success running the football that opens up other things. And we look at the deep pass to Rashee Rice and also another deep one to Justin Watson. That was on like a 3rd and 4, and I think they gained 41 yards or something on that 3rd down. Their ability to start kind of taking some shots when teams have really been daring them to do it for weeks. The people that are watching the Chiefs closely are complaining about how Mahomes won't even uncork it deep. He's not even taking shots anymore, and it makes them so easy and predictable to defend. Well, suddenly we see this tweet after the game from Next Gen Stats saying that this was their first 100-yard game, first game where they had over 100 yards on passes that traveled 20 or more yards down the field. So basically got 100 yards from deep passes.
Deep throws.
So first time they've done it since they traded Tyreek. So in 2 full seasons. They didn't do it at all last year. And this really only came on 2 plays, Rashee Rice and Justin Watson. It also ended up being the first time that Rashee Rice has caught the ball when it's been thrown more than 20 yards downfield. I don't even know how many times he's been targeted on those plays. We've been talking about his average depth of target being like the line of scrimmage, essentially. And so I think just that running game opening things up for them and then being able to take some shots, even albeit against a pretty bad Bengals defense, it's a good sign going forward and something that you obviously want to see them continue to do. And it certainly was the formula in the playoffs last year. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But if you guys go back and look, I kind of paraded them out there at the beginning of the season that we didn't really need much from the receivers in the playoffs in order for the Chiefs to be successful. Now, they did have a pretty historic, very, very solid performance from Travis Kelce in the playoffs last year. And Pacheco obviously ran the ball extremely well, particularly in that Super Bowl. But I think, well, and you know, producer Nick brings up that MVS had a good AFC title game, which is true. But if we're taking the playoffs in totality, the 3 playoff games that the Chiefs played last year, receivers did basically nothing over the course of 3 games. It's very, very, very small receptions, yards, and the touchdowns are there because you got corn dogs and things like that in the Super Bowl. But what's the other thing that you think the Chiefs have to do offensively in order for the team to win a Super Bowl as a defensive team right now in 2023?
Well, you're not going to believe this, but you hit it on the head. I got complete 2 big pass plays per game.
Oh,
so in playing complementary football, if you get the running game going, you have to hit some of these deep shots. You can't fall into a hole where the Raiders are just kind of teeing off last week on every single short route. They're sitting back in a soft zone. They're seeing these crossing routes. They're seeing these swing routes. They're seeing Kelce just sitting over the middle. Okay, go ahead and complete it. We're just going to tee off on you and make you do this 4 to 5 yards at a time. And you're going to have the patience to do this down 10 when you can't get out of your own way. So it was a very tough offensive formula for the Chiefs to succeed, and basically nothing downfield. So you finally saw it this week, completing some passes. You had the stat. I think back to like the 2019 Titans. If you remember going to that AFC Championship game against the Titans, they got this really strong running game, but it's Derrick Henry. And it's like, oh man, he's super scary. But here's what we got to do. Not allow action deep bomb, because you can have Henry run for 150 yards, but you're going to have to make him earn it, do it time and time again, make them play air-free football. But what we cannot do is have them do what they did against the Ravens the week before, and they're completing these deep throws on play action. So you pay too much attention to Henry, and then you complete them over the top, and then that's when you're in trouble playing an offense like that, because you can't give up those big plays. Yeah. Make them grind it out. So what the Chiefs need to do is that same formula. They need to find the way to get them some deep completions themselves. The running game ties in with that. The receivers finally breaking open ties with that. But you need to get a few chunk plays like that if you're going to start playing a little more conservative. That will open up the offense and open up everything else underneath, so that the offense can operate and the defense isn't just teeing off on everything.
Yeah, I mean, when I was trying to think about like what is the identity of a defensive team, like what does it actually look like? And it's running the ball and play action and kind of controlling the clock on offense. And a lot of times it's, take the points. Field position. Don't be afraid to punt, pin them back deep. Some of these things that come to mind. I do think that for this team to be successful and really embrace the identity of being a defensive team, at least for this playoff run, because that's all they've got left here, right? Like they're not going to be a defensive team next year. But if this coaching staff wants to embrace the identity that they have, first and foremost, I think they have to continue to win on third down. They are 6th on offense and 10th on defense. But I do think they got to be careful on these third down, man. I don't want them to be, okay, it's 3rd and 12 and we have Patrick Mahomes, so we're going to have him extend the play, and then we're going to try to have him, take a shot in some of these stuff. Like maybe he's just at the point where he doesn't necessarily even want to throw those passes because he doesn't trust a lot of these receivers. And so that's fine. But like, I think that the Chiefs should be willing to kill some of those plays pretty quickly. And it's the playoffs. Mahomes is going to get the competitive juices flowing, and I think that they have to rein him in. I know that people don't like the idea of a neutered Patrick Mahomes, but like the risky plays that can sometimes be what makes him so magical, those are the things. Those risks I don't think the Chiefs can take if they really want to embrace being a defensive team.
And it's such a fine line because, I mean, he's the best player in the world, so you want him to do his thing. Right. But the problem is we just haven't seen enough of those plays this year. Like we haven't seen him scramble out of the pocket, roll around, and then find someone to make a big play. We have not seen much of those. So, yeah, I think you're right. And we kind of saw it in this game. There was a couple times, I mean, I thought he was way too quick to check it down and throw it to Pacheco on a third down, but that kind of goes hand in hand with what we're saying here, and that's what you're kind of going to see. So I think you already started to see that take place in this game, and it goes with what they're saying with the simplify.
I think they got to be a little bit. They probably want to be a tick more efficient in the red zone.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean that will be a big, and that's where they have to really step up. Like this, everything outside of converting in the red zone would be good enough to win a playoff team against a playoff game against a legit team if they're able to convert in the red zone. So you can't be settling for 3 time after time like that. So that is an area. I mean, it wasn't a perfect game by any means. It's just, hey, this is what it might look like if the Chiefs are to succeed in this year's playoffs. It'll look more like this than what we're used to in years past. I got some playoff scenarios here. You want to go over those?
Yes, I do. Quickly, before we touch on playoffs, the Chiefs won the AFC West for the 8th straight time.
Oh, hey.
8 times. Yeah, I'm sure you've like seen the memes where they went from like everybody in the AFC West having way more titles than them to now having more than everybody over the last 8 years. That 8 years.
I mean, it was hard not to reflect. So you're playing the New Year's Eve game. There's a very bright memory from 2006 on New Year's Eve when the Chiefs needed 5 different games to go their way. And all 5 games did go their way. It ends with Alex Smith when he's with the 49ers winning in Denver against the Broncos in the afternoon game. And dude, me and my friends just go absolutely ape shit that Christmas, celebrate our asses off just because we're getting in the playoffs, and we end up getting our asses kicked by Peyton Manning and the Colts the next week. So it was really, it's funny to reflect back on that's what life was like back in 2006 as a Chiefs fan, just losing our minds because we just squeaked into the playoff just to get our asses kicked. Whereas this year we've kind of, bitched and moaned our way through the season as we capture our 8th straight AFC West title. And yeah, I really did like the stat where it's 16, 15, 15, 15 now. And it's also crazy that we have half of our AFC West division titles now in the last 8 years. half the division titles as a franchise all have happened in the last 8 years. So
just shows you how bad the team was for so long. I mean, truly, like they were just bad. I saw that the record number of consecutive division titles was 11 for the Patriots.
We have the second most all time right now, and just behind them.
I want that record. I want it. I want it so badly. And honestly, I kind of want the team to hit 13 or 14 so that Patrick himself breaks the 11 instead of right now. There's a couple Alex Smith ones in our streak. Because if they've had 8 straight, this is what
six. Trying to erase Alex Smith?
No
erasure.
I'm not erasing Alex Smith. I'm just saying that I would love to see Patrick Mahomes do 12 straight years on his own, start his career as a starter with 12 straight AFC West championships to be able to not only stick it to Brady and the Patriots, but obviously, the Broncos and the Ravens.
Really the only year that the Patriots didn't win it was because Brady got hurt. Yeah. That was the year they didn't win. So
he got hurt in 2021?
Well, he got hurt in 2008 is the season that they missed.
Oh, yeah, that's that he would have won it for 20 straight years.
Basically, I without checking, basically. So playoff scenarios, there's kind of a lot on the line this week. I was kind of breaking it down. There is still a chance we play the Bills. It is the least likely scenario. So if the Dolphins lose, then we play the Dolphins. That's the easiest scenario. So that's about a 50% chance of happening, I would say.
About a 50-50?
Well,
maybe two teams?
Maybe a little more than 50 because the Bills are favored by 3. But just to keep my numbers easy, I went with 50-50. But that's basically a toss-up game in Miami this week.
Bills in Miami? Okay.
In Miami. The Bills are below.
Losing Bradley Chubb, losing Jalen Phillips.
It's a different team.
Yeah, that defense was sensational. 6-7 straight games, even after Jalen Phillips went down. But I don't know. I think the Bills are going to beat the Dolphins. That would be my expectation.
I kind of agree. So if that happens, then it's easy, and Miami comes to Kansas City. The problem is then you have Buffalo as the 2 seed, Baltimore as the 1 seed. So your most likely path is going Miami at Buffalo at Baltimore, which I think is probably the top 3 teams in the AFC, and you'd have to play them all, 2 of them on the road. Buffalo kind of having your number at this point. So I think that's the toughest road. So you definitely want to cheer for the Dolphins this weekend to open up the possibilities of playing these teams. So I put it at percent chances here. I think it's 20% we play the Texans, 15% we play the Colts, 10% we play the Steelers, and 5% we play the Bills. So we play the Bills if you need 3 underdogs to win this weekend. You need the Ravens to beat the Steelers. The Ravens have nothing to play for. They're kind of in an odd scenario where they're looking at the rest versus rust kind of thing because they'd have 2 weeks off if they sit everybody. It's always kind of an interesting thing, but more than likely they're not going to play everybody, especially Lamar. So they're underdogs to the Steelers who have to win to get in. So you need the Ravens to win. You need the Titans to win who have nothing to play for, and they're playing the Jaguars with their playoff lives on the line. And then
Don't say they got nothing to play for. Did you see Mike Vrabel today? They got everything to play for.
It's true. Vrabel's such a dog.
He doesn't want to get fired, man. I mean, and I don't think that he should. I think he would instantly be everyone's favorite coach on the market. I think he's an excellent head coach, but that dude wants to win.
It was, if he did get fired, I think he'd get scooped up in the next 2 days. It would be like an Andy Reid situation where a team's flying they're playing in and not letting him leave. No,
you can't go.
You've shut down the airways across the country. You are not leaving.
Yeah.
So I put it at a 5% chance that the Bills, you'd have to have those 3 games. And that's obviously the toughest first round opponent. I think almost everybody would agree with that. Maybe I think they're a little overrated in terms of being a Super Bowl contender because they seem to play the Chiefs different than they play everybody else. I mean, they've now squeaked out wins over Easton Stick and Bailey Zappi and the Patriots, even though the Patriots are turning over 4 times in the first half. The Bills have a bunch of problems, but they do seem to step it up against the Chiefs and play very well against them. So those are kind of just the percentages I put on them. I do think it's a big situation where you want the Dolphins to win. So you're looking at that path, and then you play in the Dolphins in round 2, a Dolphins team that we're looking at without these 2 edge rushers, And that's a much easier game in round 2. So the path just gets much easier. So the Texans would be the most likely first round. So then you go Texans, Dolphins, and then at Ravens as the path. So I think that's definitely what Chiefs fans want to cheer for this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I the easiest path is really, I think, what you're hoping for, and that is Miami winning and solidifying that 2 seed. But I don't know, man. Like, I think that Miami they're very scary because they can be so explosive, and something that Matt Lane has been talking about, how poorly the Chiefs performed the second time that they saw the Broncos and the second time they saw the Raiders. And this would be the second time that they have seen the Dolphins, that the Dolphins have seen everything that we can do offensively, that they have seen this defense, and that they're going to perform presumably better.
I think seeing what we did defensively, because if there was one game where Spags emptied the bag this year, it was against Miami. I mean, they were sending blitzers from every single angle. My fear would be is that they showed so much in that game that if McDaniel's looking at this for multiple weeks, did we show too much? And now he has proper counters for all these things we did and just confused the hell out of them. But you'd think after seeing all that, they'd kind of have some answers to that test, a month or two later.
I don't remember if it was that game or if it's just been some other times, but I think it was that game that they were like, just blitz him to death. And then the last couple drives, they didn't. They said, we're not blitzing anybody. I'm just going to go straight 4-man rush, and Tua couldn't find anybody open, and they would still end up getting a sack. Spags has, I think, I would take Spagnuolo with this group of defenders over maybe any offense in the league right now. Like, I don't think that there's an offense out there that's like, I'm really worried about what they're going to do to Spags and the Chiefs. I think that this defense is so static in terms of their greatness this year. Like, I don't know, man. It takes our offense playing with the defense, that complementary football, because the defense has given the offense chances to win literally every single game this year, apart from maybe Green Bay. Like, maybe. That's the game that they gave up the most points. But even then, the Chiefs have hardly allowed teams. They've got the fewest number of opponents that have scored over 20 this year. I believe they're second in overall scoring defense. They're second in the league in sacks, obviously still not turning people over. But I am not afraid that any team is going to score a bunch of points, whether it's the second time that we've played them or not. That's where I'm at personally.
It's the teams that have had the most success are kind of like staying ahead of the chains and, staying, having successful plays time and time again, not like a Dolphin, like a flashy offense like that. It's kind of the Packers that were picking up 5 yards at a time. Like, if you look at the third down numbers of this defense, in the shorter yardage, they are kind of below league average. But once you get up to like 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 10, they are lights out. Like, one of the most consistent things in the NFL this season has been the Chiefs on like 3rd and 10 or longer, which is wild because the Bengals picked up a 4th and 18. Like, it was absolutely nothing. I don't know where it was the most confusing play of the season. Like, he just ran right to the middle of the field and he was just sitting there wide open. Like, that was extremely easy. So that was weird to see. But the rest of the season, the Chiefs, when it's 3rd and 10 or longer, man, they are dialing it up and they are confusing the quarterback, and they have had much success in that. So if they keep offenses in 3rd and long like that, they've had great success. It's a weird team like the Packers, and I'd have to look, at the spread of teams, but just a team that can continually move the ball 3, 4, 5, 6 yards at a time and stay ahead of the chains and don't let Spags get in his bag like that. Those are the teams.
You saw like this defense has so rarely this year been able to, with a lead late in the game, pure passing situations, just unleash what they do. And they had 5 sacks in the last 6 minutes of this one against the Bengals. I think even with that 4th and 18 mixed in there, that was ridiculous. Like, why is Tyler Boyd wide open in the middle of the field on 4th and 18? One last thing on the offense before we go. because I think it is worth mentioning, and it goes back to how quickly Mahomes ended up checking down a lot in this game. The tackles aren't good. I saw that Jawan Taylor had a very, very good PFF grade. And you kind of commenting on that, saying like, this is what we need in the playoffs. Like, we need is Jawan Taylor going to be elite like he was as a pass blocker last year? I just don't think that Mahomes, they haven't had a good enough year protecting him for him to feel comfortable and confident in the pocket. And so he is a little bit skittish. He has a rookie left tackle right now, and I don't think that's going to change in the playoffs.
It's a big question. It's a big question. If you keep, because Wanya looked better this week. He still gave up the strip sack, obviously, but it was nothing like the Raiders game. The Raiders game was like a travesty. I mean, that's probably one of the worst games an offensive lineman's played in the NFL all season. So it was tough to see. But he's been pretty solid in 3 of his other 4 games. So do you want to bring back Donovan, who had, I don't know, an average season, maybe slightly below average season, now coming back off an injury and going right back into a playoff game? It's a tough decision, but I think they probably will stick with Wanya.
Yeah, that would be my expectation. I just, I think with all the problems that they have had on offense this year, we are now at a point where the best thing to do is to just live to fight another play, another down, and really trust that defense. And I feel like that's what we saw in this game against the Bengals, that he was quick to check it down, that they were willing to take field goals, that Andy was like, Pat, I don't care. Shut up. Pat's complaining when he's coming off. Come on, coach. I want to go for it. No, we're going to go use our all-pro kicker. I mean, honestly, like that's another big part of the being a defensive team. You have right now, this season, he's the best kicker in the NFL. And for his career, he's the second best kicker in the NFL. Like
all time. He passed, I can't remember who he passed, someone weird. But yeah, second most accurate kicker of all time at this point.
Koo or somebody?
Could have been Koo. It could have been Koo. Tucker was still number 1.
Bear Baron, maybe one of those Pacific Islanders. And at any rate, I think that the Chiefs have the elements on the team to be successful if they embrace that identity.
Path is there.
And I really liked seeing how they played in this game, mostly because it felt like they came into the game with a plan, or certainly came into the second half of the plan, and then they executed it. And it just looked right to me. It looked confident. There wasn't, oh, well, we got to get the play in. It's 3rd and 6. And, oh, we're going to have to burn a timeout, or we're going to be rushed at the line, or this guy doesn't know where to line up. It's like they cut all of that stuff out somehow. And I don't know if that's the simplification of it.
It's got to
be. It seems like it has to be, but they looked so much cleaner, so much more decisive in this game against the Bengals. And it is in some ways a reflection of how bad the Bengals are on defense. I totally get it. It was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like going down 10 against a very fiery, competitive, talented Bengals team that, even though they're missing the key in their run defense, and even though they're missing Burrow, the Chiefs of last week don't win that game. And so I was very, very happy to see the way that they turned it around against the Bengals. I do want to ask you this before we get out of here. Really interesting conversation between Maddie and Kent yesterday afternoon about whether or not to rest guys, because we're in a position where, especially since the bye week, we went over it last week. It's like win, loss, win, loss, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like cannot string even 2 wins together at this point. And so did we see enough positive signs from the offense or whatever that it's like, all right, cool, take your week off and then we'll just play a playoff game? Or do you need them out there? Build on that rhythm. And you know, what is more valuable, the rest or actually trying to build on something a little bit offensively? And I don't know, man. I don't think that there's any way you can turn down giving those guys a week off. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't like the situation to be like in the Ravens where they are. So if they already have a bye week and now they're getting a rest week, I actually think where the position the Chiefs are in is better than where the Ravens are, because I don't want the 2 weeks off in between games, which is what they're looking at. I like
it would be like 3 full weeks between games, right?
yeah.
Because you get 2 Sundays off, man.
I like where the Chiefs are at. I would go with rest in this situation. I just kind of see like a tired team. It looks like Kelsey's body is wearing on him. Pacheco could use the rush. Mahomes, I think, could use the mental reset. And I would look to come in fresh. I get the rest versus rust. I get the argument for just playing and going like that, keeping the rhythm. Lots of times I'm kind of in favor of that. I think in this situation, I'm resting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably the smart play for them. They look like they need it mentally, physically, all of it. They need to be able to take a step back. I mean, honestly, I know that you can't, but I would I'd almost be like, can we just forfeit? Like, or not forfeit, maybe, because it's important to maybe like get some of these young guys. Like, I can't wait to watch BJ Thompson and Felix Anudike-Uzomah rush the quarterback all week. That's going to be really fun. But I don't know, like, can we give Andy the week off? like Andy.
Well, Andy's not game planning for this week, if that's what you mean. So Andy is definitely saving up the bag for next week. And it's also an important game for Dirk's over 10 wins bet for the Chiefs, which seemed like a lock, and I totally forgot about. And I made fun of it when we were like 6-1, like over under 10 wins. Are you kidding me? I made this bet after week 1, after we lost to Detroit. And now they're straddling the line on a push. And they flirted with going under on this, which I thought was impossible. The Chiefs going 9-8 this season, I thought was virtually impossible. They almost pulled it off, but now they have a chance to backdoor cover the over 10 wins. Let's go.
Did you see the Travis Kelce's like emotional energy? Hey, Kent, love you too, buddy. It was like Travis Kelce's body language the last few weeks, and it was that picture of Affleck. Did you see that one?
No.
Dude, I could not agree more. I've said enough on Travis Kelce throughout this season. I think I was telling you guys in like week 4 or week 5, like, I don't know. It doesn't look great. He keeps extending the 3 catches in a game, but it's like for
is that a streak? That's a thing?
Oh yeah, he has, I think he's like second to Jerry Rice in NFL history for consecutive games with at least 3 catches. But yeah, it's for like 16, 17 yards. He looks so tired. Give that man a rest. And we're going to take a rest. And the next time that we talk to you, we're going to be preparing for a playoff game in the wild card round. Yikes. But that'll be all right. Chiefs are going to host a playoff game at Arrowhead. We'll see who the opponents are after all the dust settles from this interesting weekend of games. I believe the game that everyone's really actually waiting and watching and excited to see is going to be Sunday Night Football, the Bills and Dolphins. Of course, we have to wait until about 11 p.m. next Sunday to actually figure out where the Chiefs are going to be. But that will be fun. You're going to be all right. No, not 11 p.m. That's the West Coast over there.
Move west.
Yeah, right. All right, folks, this has been Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He is his Dirkness, and Justin Herbert is Phillip Rivers, and Easton Stick is I don't know who Easton Stick is, but
who's Easton Stick? Craig Wheelahan.